So YouTube just got caught violating privacy law again. They just lost a 5.5-year case against Austrian NGO noyb, which is basically a digital rights organization in Austria. So the authorities ordered full compliance with the user's GDPR data access request, highlighting widespread non-compliance by major platforms. GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. So they ordered YouTube to fully comply with the user's data access request under Article 15 of the GDPR. So in 2019, the privacy group filed 8 complaints against major streaming platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, and Apple Music, for not complying with the EU's data protection law, the GDPR. The vast majority of you guys, I'm sure, use at least one, if not all, of these streaming platforms. So think about the fact that they could be violating our privacies. Under Article 15 of the GDPR, companies must provide users access to their personal data and explain how it is used, who it's shared with, and how long it's stored. But according to noyb, none of the companies responded appropriately. The case against YouTube, owned by Google, stood out. A user requested their data in 2019 but received only part of it, with important details missing, such as why the data was being processed and who else had access to it. Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind if you decide to hand over YouTube an ID or a video verification. It took Austrian Data Protection Authority DSB 5.5 years to issue a ruling, finally ordering Google to hand over the complete information. The lawyer at noyb, Martin, said these delays make it nearly impossible for users to exercise other rights like correcting or deleting their data. The DSB confirmed that companies must fully answer access requests in a clear, easy to understand format. So Google has 4 weeks to comply, or they can appeal and they can just go ahead and keep delaying this data case for even more years. Obviously though, you guys understand the connection being made. YouTube has now ordered everybody who wants to have access to advanced features to provide ID verification or a video verification or a selfie, credit card, things like that. Basically very sensitive data that is revealing of our information. Now, if YouTube keeps losing these privacy lawsuits and regulatory rulings about privacy, it is going to be very, very interesting for everybody who decides to hand over information to YouTube. Obviously, for monetized creators like myself, we have to give YouTube our information anyways, but for those of you who don't have to, definitely be careful when you give YouTube and other companies your information, because at the end of the day, they're all being busted for violating our privacies, tracking our data, keeping our data, saying they deleted our data and they didn't, not telling us how they use said data. A bunch of things like that. YouTube has withheld a large amount of data, including information about the purpose of the processing, storage periods, data recipients, and the tracking cookies used. It is pretty damn problematic how long YouTube was able to delay a regulatory ruling like this, with that same lawyer saying it is absurd that a multi-billion-dollar tech company like Google rather engages in lengthy legal proceedings than to grant a user access to his personal data. Even though the authority found a violation after several years, Google successfully delayed compliance with an access request for more than half a decade. This not only creates significant costs for a donation-funded NGO such as noyb, it also robs data subjects of their fundamental rights. Imagine having to wait 5.5 years for a regulatory ruling to go through, so Google can just give you some information that you requested, you know, your own information. And like I said, it's crazy how Google is going through legal proceedings and spending money when they could have just provided the user who asked for their own data, their data. I mean, it's just really, really nefarious. The case against YouTube and therefore against Google was simple and should have been easy to decide. The company had only provided a fraction of the data that it processes about the complainant and withheld information about the purpose of the processing, storage periods, data recipients, and tracking cookies used. It still took the Austrian Data Protection Authority 5.5 years to finally issue a decision. So I know I keep kind of restating this, but just want to make it clear. It took 5.5 years for this person to get the data of their own self from Google, and Google was willing to delay that shit for 5.5 years. Why are they so desperate to hold on to our information? What is going on there? They try to pull out every excuse in the book. Being well aware of enforcement deficits in Ireland, Google ultimately unsuccessfully tried to argue that the Irish Supervisory Authority is competent to handle this case. This alone massively dragged out the case. In addition, Google claimed that the complainant's access request was not precise enough, even though he had specifically listed the data he wanted to receive, and there is no such obligation to specify an access request. Making an access request should enable data subjects to exercise other rights, such as the right to erasure or rectification by providing them with information to access the lawfulness of processing activity. If it takes more than 5 years to receive access, it becomes impossible to exercise other data subject rights. So because this decision has gone through, now they're going to be a little bit more tough with their enforcement. This decision has implications for users of other platforms as well. In its decision, the DSP once again made clear that companies must answer access requests and in an easily accessible form. Google unlawfully referred the complainant to several online tools to download his data, as well as YouTube's privacy policy, which obviously does not contain personalized information about the data that is processed about him. So like I said earlier, Google now has 4 weeks to comply with the decision, or they could appeal it and make this go even longer. So we could go even more than 5.5 years of this person trying to request their data from Google and Google just refusing to give it to them. We could go into a decade here. They could delay this for like 10 years, who knows? So yeah, in short, Google lost another court-related thing about privacy. Remember that they recently had to settle a YouTube children's privacy lawsuit because they were apparently violating the rights of the kids by collecting their personal information without parental consent. Alphabet, which is the organization that owns Google and YouTube, also in 2019 had to pay $170 million in fines and change some practices for similar charges. It had something to do with collecting kids' information as well. And then Google had also been fined $1.4 billion before for collecting biometric data as well. So in short, YouTube is collecting a lot of our information. It is no coincidence that YouTube is starting to lose these court cases now, ever since they've started requesting a lot of personal information from us: video verifications, valid IDs, credit cards, things like that. Remember, before you hand over this type of stuff to YouTube, make sure you know exactly what's going on with them and the types of cases that they're losing. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the situation in the comments. Please leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more. See ya.